A few days ago, I did a video talking about if it goes through that there are no property taxes, if property taxes get abolished in the state of Florida. We discussed all of the good things that could happen from that. But as always on this channel, I like to balance out the good with the bad. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about the bad things that could happen if we wind up with no property taxes. Now listen, you may think, how could there be anything bad at all? How could you come up with even one bad thing if we don't have property taxes? Well, let's talk through it. So number one, if we abolish property taxes, then there could potentially be a lack of funding for schools, police, fire departments, infrastructure. Eliminating that revenue could create a gap. Now, I will say Florida does a pretty good job of staying balanced in the budget for Florida, but eliminating something like that, I just have to make the guess, and there's already rumors out there. I'm not even going to go through the rumors, but there are rumors out there that the people that live in Florida full-time are going to get hit really hard. In other areas, the snowbirds are not, and it's going to create sort of an offset that doesn't do anybody any good. So I don't know if any of that is going to come to fruition, but just as you think through it, if you're missing that big bit of revenue, then there are some places then you could end up lacking in other areas. Now listen, I know I just said I'm not going to talk about any rumors, but if that sector is gone, then you got to think about, where does the money come from? Does Florida go back to saying now we're going to have income tax? Because that's been one of the things business owners want to be here, because we do not have income tax in Florida. So that would be one place that people are considering. Sales tax. Now, currently, Florida doesn't have sales tax on food. Yes, they have sales tax on prepared food, but most of the food you're going to buy in the grocery store, no taxes. Could they do something there? So people are getting a little bit concerned, like I said, especially folks that live in Florida full time, that this isn't going to be such a great thing for them. But again, these are rumors. We don't know. All of this right now is not anything that has happened. But there's been kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod that the whole property tax thing is going to go through. Public schools rely very heavily on property taxes. If those are removed, we already have a pretty serious crisis with schooling. Florida, this is no secret, Florida ranks pretty low when you look at school districts. Now, there are some that are better. St. Johns County usually ranks pretty high in the top 3 in the state of Florida. Sarasota County usually ranks pretty high, but the rest of the state, not so much. So that's already a strained system. And if we put any more pressure on that, that could be really problematic. Also, another concern in the area is that it could really create sort of an imbalance where folks are saying, well, my gosh, I'm not even going to send my kids to the public schools anymore because they're not funded. I'm just going to take this money that I saved over here on property taxes and I'm going to send my kids to private schools. So it could create sort of an unintended consequence of having people leave the public schools. It could also put a strain on local governments. Cities and counties would need to find alternative funding sources, potentially leading to cuts in essential services or even higher local fees. So that's higher local fees nobody wants. Nobody wants that. And again, that would sit heavily on the folks that live in the area full time, much more than the snowbirds. Now, one of the things that I mentioned as a positive also is a negative in terms of investors coming in and buying. So if there are no property taxes, that's going to appeal a lot to investors. Their ROI is going to be significantly higher. I already have investors. I do consultations all week long. Investors are all over it. They really want this to happen. So the flip of that is that, yes, those investors would help sort of eat up the excess inventory that we have right now in Florida in most areas. But the flip to that is that could increase speculative buying, and we know what happens when that happens. That usually is symptomatic of a crash. So we don't need to add any more ingredients. You know, I talk about this on my channel all the time. Every little hole that we pop in the balloon that's in the air, eventually that balloon comes down. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. So that could lend itself, it could kind of be amenable to a crash. So something like that could put just another hole, just enough deflation in our already strained market to cause a bit more of a crashing circumstance. So let me know what you think. I will try to make sure that I have the other video that talks about the good things about abolishing property taxes. I'll try to make sure to have that down in the description box. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?